Good day. This is Rousby Woof with episode number 5 of my Minecraft Railroad tutorial. Today is going to be a little different in that we're not going to be talking about railroad tracks specifically, but rather this is an introduction to redstone circuits in Minecraft. Now, why redstone circuits on a railroad tutorial? Because redstones allow you to make lots of fun automations for your railroad track. So we are going to just talk about the basics here because there's a lot to redstones, and actually just playing around with it you can learn a lot on your own, but I'm going to give you a few basics here to get you started. Now what I have here laid out in our tutorial field is redstone sources here. What we have here is the redstone torch, which we've already used to power rails. This is a permanent source, as long as it's there, a permanent source of redstone energy. We have a switch, a button, and a button rail, or what Minecraft calls a detector rail, which is this one here. And over here we have 3 users of redstone. We have a redstone lantern, a piston, and a bell. Now there's many more than this in the Minecraft universe, as there are many more power sources than these 4. I just wanted to put some out here to illustrate and get us started. So let's discuss the 3 elements of a redstone circuit. We have a power source, which I'm going to use a redstone torch since we're already familiar with it. And I'm going to use a redstone lantern here, which is a user. So by putting power into this lantern, we can turn it on. And then between the two of them, we have a circuit. So notice we have a source, a redstone circuit, which I made out of what Minecraft calls redstone dust. Now, and then we have this lantern, which you can see is on. If I take away the source of power, get rid of the torch, the lantern goes off. I'm going to put a different source of power here. I'm going to put a switch. Now let's notice here, when I right click the switch, it turns on, and when I right click it again, it turns off. So right click on, right click off. Notice when it's on, the lantern is on, and when it's off, the lantern's off. But also notice that the redstone dust, the path, the conductive path, glows bright red when the circuit is activated. And it also gives off these little redstone sparks here as well. At least, I guess that's what they are. And then if the circuit goes off, the redstone lantern goes off, but also notice that the circuit goes dark. It's now this dark maroon. So on, off. And I'm going to put another source here. Let's let me bring this up. Let's go to our redstone. I'm going to grab a button here. Let's get rid of that. And let's put a button here. Now notice the button, when I push it, the circuit comes on, but the button only stays down for a brief period of time because I'm not doing anything. I'm pushing it, and then it goes off on its own. So this is a temporary power source. You push it on, it stays on for 2 seconds, and it goes off. Because as I push it on, the lantern comes on, the circuit comes on, and then it pops off all on its own. And this is also true here for the button rail, or detector rail as they call it. I'm going to bring a redstone circuit out here, and I'm going to put let's put a lantern on the end. That's the easiest way to. And I'm going to take this cart here and put it right on the button. See, notice when there's a cart on the button, it excites this redstone circuit and turns on the lantern. If I push the cart off the button, it turns off. So this circuit is only active for the period of time in which the cart is over the button. So if this were a traveling train, it would only be on the button for a brief period of time as it passes over it. So now it's off. All right. I'm going to go back to this circuit. Let's put a switch here. All right. On. Off. Now you can also notice, and we experienced this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this path. Actually, get rid of this circuit. You can do away with the circuit if you put your redstone source right next, I'm going to put a button here, right next to the user. So put the button here. If I push the button, that comes on and off, on and off. And we can do that here for the piston. Push it, whoop, turn it on, the piston goes up, and then when it goes off. So let's get rid of this, put a switch here, lever. On, piston stays up as long as it's on, off, on, off. So you only need a circuit if the source isn't right next to the user. If the source and the user are together, you can do away with this redstone circuit that I drew earlier. But that is very seldom the case. Actually, the only time I believe I have the source and the user together is when I'm building railroads, and I'll put a let's put that right over the button, and I put a power rail right next to a redstone source. That's about the only time I won't have a circuit, because anytime you start building complex logic circuits with your redstone, you are going to use redstone as a conductor to connect sources and users that are quite a distance apart. Okay, let's take a look at some of these. Okay, we've looked at the, let's put a switch here at the end of each one of these paths. And let me go ahead and put it in this way. All right. If we turn it on, it stays on. If we turn it on, it stays up. Now the bell is unique. If I turn on the bell, you hear it ring, but it only rings once. Even though we can see that the source of power is continuing on it, it only rings when it goes from power off to power on. So we turn it off, turn it on. Off, on, off, on. So the bell only strikes when it changes from a power off state to a power on state. So let's go ahead and clean this up as well. All right, let's go back to our circuit. I'm going to put a redstone lantern here. Let's put a switch here. Let's connect them with a redstone path. And what we're going to talk about here is there's another circuit element. Another conductor element. So we have the redstone dust path, and we can also have what is called a redstone repeater. Now, these repeaters tend to be a little bit intimidating to people who are new to redstone. However, I encourage you to use them often and get very familiar with them. They are beyond a doubt, the most useful tool in the redstone inventory. They have many, many different functions. We're going to discuss 3 of those functions here today, and we'll discuss the other functions of a redstone repeater as we get deeper into redstone circuits. So the first thing I want to show you about a repeater is it behaves as a conductor. Notice instead of a bit of redstone dust here, I have a repeater. So it's conducting redstone energy from the switch to the source. And it behaves exactly like any other conductor. And you can put 2 in series as well. So we'll do that. So here we go. All right, let's get rid of these. Here's something, the first thing I want you to notice is if I go up and look down at it, you'll notice a faint arrow pointing toward the redstone lantern. Now, that arrow shows the direction of redstone energy flow through a repeater. It always goes in the direction of the arrow. So if I take this out and put it back in facing the other way, see the arrow is now pointing back at the switch. Notice, no matter how many times I turn the switch on and off, the lantern doesn't go on and off. The power stops at the repeater because the repeater is pointing back at the source and will only allow energy to travel in the direction of the arrow. And since the arrow is pointing away from the redstone lantern, it doesn't allow it to pass. Now, what this does is for you electrical engineers out there, or I don't know, computer scientists, it's behaving as a diode, right? Or if you're a mechanical, if you're more mechanically minded, or a plumber, it behaves as a check valve in hydraulics. All right. So, all right, I'm going to notice with my redstone circuits, I've connected both switches to both lanterns. So when I turn on the right switch, both lanterns come on. When I turn on the left switch, both lanterns come on. But right here, I'm going to install a repeater, and notice the arrow is pointing away from me. It always, wherever you put it down, it points away from you. So it's now pointing away from me. So it's conducting current from left to right, but it can't go right to left because that would be against the arrow. So notice if I turn on the left switch, the left lantern comes on because the direct circuit, and the right lantern comes on because the diode is pointing in this direction. It lights them both. But if I turn off the left and turn on the right, notice only the right one comes on. The left one does not come on. That's because this repeater, its diode function, is preventing the passage of redstone energy to go to the left. See how it's dark over here? So the right switch only turns on the right lantern, whereas the left switch, because of the diode function of the repeater, turns them both on. All right, we're going to leave that at that for right now. So we know that we can use our repeater as a diode. Okay, the next function I want to discuss is, I'm not sure why I took down everything there. I guess I could have just, let me do this. I'm going to put a switch here. Over here, put a switch here, and then I'm going to, okay, I got two circuits here. Now, left switch turns on a left lantern, right circuit turns on the right lantern, but they don't turn on each other, and that's because they're insulated by this row of blocks. See, we have one block row in between them, and that distance insulates the two circuits. But watch what happens if I try to put the two circuits close to each other. Well, actually, why did I do that? I'm going to leave my lantern there. Let's go a little bit of redstone here. Redstone. Now, and you can always see what happened. You can see the redstone bled over to the one next to it. Now, because of the short circuit, when I turn on the right one, I get both lanterns on. Because I got a short circuit here between the right and the left. And that's also true for the left. When I turn the left on, I get both lanterns. I don't want both lanterns. I just wanted the left one. When I turn on the right, I only wanted the right one. So if you're stuck working in close quarters, which you often are, as your circuits become more elaborate, you can't run redstone next to each other because of short circuits. But what you can do is you can put down, there we go. I'm going to have to put a little bit of redstone here, which means I'm going to have to put a repeater. Let me see. Actually, I think I can, yeah. Actually, let's not confuse the issue too much. Let's put a repeater here. All right, repeater. Okay, but we still have a problem up here at the top. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stick a repeater in here. Now, notice the repeaters don't short circuit over to the circuit next to them. There's no bleed over between them. So now when I turn on the right, it just turns on the right. When I turn on the left, it turns on the left. So you can use the repeater as an insulator to separate two circuits that are running close to one another. Now, one thing that you can't do with a repeater is you can't turn the actually, let me see, did I just make a liar out of myself? No. See how when this is on, it doesn't come out the side? So you can't turn a corner with a repeater. You're going to have to use redstone dust for a corner because the repeaters do not deliver power out the side, so they won't turn a corner, which is why I had to put the repeater here in a straight section on the opposite circuit. Okay, so we can use our repeater function as a diode, as we saw, and we can use it as a circuit insulator as well, so to insulate it from other circuits. Now, the third function I want to talk about is, watch this. I'm going to notice when I turned it on, the lantern didn't come on immediately. There was a slight delay. See, when I turned it off, there's a slight delay. On, off. Okay, there's a slight delay, and that's because the repeater has a delay function. And each repeater, and the Redstone gurus of Minecraft could correct me on this, I think each repeater adds about 1/4 of a second delay. So I have 1/4, 1/2. I have 3/4 of a second delay here with 3 repeaters. But you can increase that any more. Notice these 2 torches next to each other. Well, if I right click it, notice that one moved over. That just adds 1/4 of a second delay. And then if I add it one more, now there, it adds 2/4, 3/4. And then if you do it again, it goes back 4. So click, 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 click. So 4 clicks. So for a single repeater, that's 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1 second. Now here I have 1 second and 1/4, 1 second and 1/2, 1 second and 3/4, 2 seconds, and then 2 1/4, 2 1/2, 2 3/4, 3 seconds. Now, with all 3 of these moved all the way back, I have about a 3-second delay. So watch, it'll be much longer when I turn it on, off. And notice that delay is both directions, power up, power down. And you can watch the power move through the different repeaters. Power on, power off. So the third function that I wanted to talk about for repeaters today is the delay function. So they serve as a diode. They serve as a circuit insulator for 2 circuits running close to each other. And they serve as a delay in your circuit. So there are many, many other features that we can experiment with on Redstone repeaters, but I'm only going to cover those 3 today. Now, the last thing I want to discuss today before completing this tutorial is how to put everything on the ground. Because as we get more and more into more and more difficult circuits here on Minecraft, those circuits become quite large and take up a tremendous amount of space. So now, maybe you don't mind if there's redstone circuits covering your landscape. I personally prefer to put them underground. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how to put a circuit underground. And the 2 things that matter when you're putting a circuit underground is how to get power from below the ground to the surface, and how to get power from the surface below the ground. So the first thing that we're going to look at is how to get power below ground up to the surface. And to do that, we use this feature. We get a redstone torch. All right. I'm going to take a regular block. In this case, it's a block of dirt. It could be a block of anything. It could be a block of gold or wool or whatever. And you put a redstone torch on the side of it. All right. So a block of dirt with a redstone torch on the side of it. And what that'll do, notice, it will pass redstone energy up through a single block to whatever you have on top. Because notice, if I take the torch off, whoops, the redstone turns off, and if I put the torch back on, redstone lantern's on. Off, on. So it passes information up through the block to go from below ground to above ground. That's how you get energy from underground to above ground, is put this torch on the side of a block. Now, before we get off this subject, there's another feature of this that we want to discuss. And that is, let's come out here. Got to avoid that hole so I don't fall in it. I'm going to stick a switch here, redstone power source. Notice I brought this circuit from my lever all the way around to the back of the block. Now, if I turn this on, see the switch is on, the redstone circuit is excited, but the torch went off. See, this essentially reverses redstone power information. If the power is on behind the block, it will turn the torch off in front of the block. Now watch what happens if I turn this off, the torch will come back on. Off, torch is on, torch is off. So by putting a redstone torch on the side of a block and bringing the redstone power up behind it, it reverses the information. Also notice that if I put some redstone here, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to put a redstone lantern right there. See, we can then capture this information off the torch and send it downstream. So when I turn this off, this comes on and it lights our redstone lantern. So circuit on, turns the torch off, turns off the lantern. Circuit off, turns the torch on, turns on our lantern. On, off. So see how it reverses the information from the redstone circuit. Very useful. We're going to use this a lot. But we also get the benefit. Let's put a block of dirt there. Remember, it passes it up. So let's do this. Put our redstone lantern on top there. Notice when the circuit's off, on. So it's backwards. When the circuit's on, see how it's glowing back there? Torch is off, lantern's off. Lantern's on. All right. Let's use this information to pass our circuit. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a block down here. We're going to come behind it and we're going to put a torch. Now, my torch is on, so my redstone block is on. And then we're going to bring the circuit here in the back. And the next thing we're going to talk about, let's put a lever right here. So we've learned how to pass redstone power from underground to above ground. Now let's learn how to pass it from above ground down to the ground. If you put a blob of redstone dust one block below a source, you can pass that information down to it. So watch, if I turn this on, let's see if I can get them both in the picture. If I turn this on, notice the redstone path is now excited. If I turn it off, it's off. And I could do this with any redstone source. Let me put a, whoops. Actually, it didn't work with the torch. I apologize. So I lied to you. It doesn't work with the torch. But let's say I use a button. I can use a button here. Get rid of the cart. Let's put a button here. And I'll press the button. Notice it's excited. Press, excited. Press, it's only temporary, excited. All right, put my lever back. There's my lever, on, off. So on passes down through the one block. All right. Then what this allows you to do is, whoops, sorry. I'm going to just fill in the top here so that nobody can see it. All right, now it looks like regular ground. We can put railroad track here. We can do whatever we like. We can build a building. We can put any kind of decoration. But see, it still works. Power on, power off. You can see it right there. Power on, power off, power on. And watch this. If I remember where it was, let me get rid of my lantern. I'm going to put a bell there instead. And so power on. And maybe get rid of that. Let's put a piston maybe. Whoop, missed. It's got to be exactly on that spot. Off, on, off, on. So this is how we can build complex redstone circuits and not having like cluttering up our beautiful Minecraft landscape. Now, let me before we sign off here, I want to cover one more issue, and that is, notice the redstone does not come over the block. if you put the redstone here over the block, well, I didn't want to do that. Let's see, got my torch there. Okay, well, let's do it up here. Put my torch on the side of the block and bring my redstone over the block. All right, just made a liar out of me. Okay, it works exactly the same. All right. Typically, I just bring it into the back. But the main reason not to bring your redstone across the top of the block is you then won't be able to put your dirt back in to fill in the hole where your redstone circuit is. All right, well, that is all I had planned to discuss on this episode of 5. You now have all the basic elements of your redstone circuit, a power source, a power user, and the circuit elements that connect the two together. And you've also got the basics for putting your circuit underground. So next time we'll take a look at a very basic redstone circuit and how to construct it, and then in subsequent episodes we'll get into more and more sophisticated redstone. So have a good day, and hopefully this will help you make your epic railroad just that much more epic.